say 39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30. 29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18. 17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up.
All right, Mouthwash fans, welcome to episode 104 of the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And we got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I don't know if you've checked the radar lately, but look at that. That little blue dot's us. We got all that snow and stuff and coming on here. So, woo, everybody hunker down and enjoy the Mouthwash show. It might be our last one. We may get snowed in for 2 weeks. Who knows? It's going to be crazy. But hey, I don't want you to notice here. We got some new shirts here and really I got red and sorry, Lucy, we don't have a yellow because it didn't look right on there. But look, it's even got this mini fresh. I spelled fresh right. Proud of myself for that because Johnny can't spell or Johnny can't read. So we have that going on, and we got a new show announcement tonight. We're going to run this show through the Mouthwash show because I don't have anything else set up. But we got a pilot show coming out, and it's going to be this Thursday. Well, heck, I'll just go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and play this little clip for you, and then I'm going to bring on our guest. No, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to play the clip. I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest first. We'll play the clip, then I'll bring the people on. I love how we do all this pre-show prep. And hey, this is going to be a first. Well, actually, Dr. Stock is now going to be our most appearances on the Mouthwash Talk Show by a guest. And I really feel confident that we'll get through the show with sound and video the whole time. What could go wrong? So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Dr. Stock here. I think he's got his Penguins, are you a Pittsburgh Penguin fan?
I am a Pittsburgh Penguin fan.
Oh, dear.
I can tell you, I must be a bigger fan of the Mouthwash show because I'm giving up listening to the game tonight to do this.
I know. And last time we had to get you out of some other big fancy meeting. I mean, you're all over the place. But I bet people are probably thinking, well, we're going to talk about the virus and other things tonight. But no, you are a man. You are a jack of all trades. We're going to talk about politics tonight. And, I've heard you explain this thing twice now, and I still don't understand it. So, it's going to have to be, you take it easy on me tonight because I'm trying to figure out exactly what this means. People ask me, what's the show about? I said, I don't know if I know. I can tell you it's going to be important. So tell us what you've been up to here. Don't give it all away, but just tell us, how did you get from virus to the politic thing? I know you do some other politic things, so tell us about that.
Well, it actually started off in politics. I've been lobbying the legislature since 2015 on behalf of the Convention of States organization. And in 2015, 2016, we actually got our resolution through the State House. So I got to see the sausage machine work. And it was my first taste of it. And it worked out in my favor. So I didn't really pay as much attention as I could have seen what was going on there. It didn't look completely right, but okay, happy ending. And then came last year's legislature, where the legislature basically took care of everybody except the citizens of Indiana. and got to see exactly how this machine goes about abandoning Hoosiers and taking care of lobbyists. And that got me thinking of how to solve things, because I'm a functional doctor. I go to the root cause of problems, and realized that it's actually the rules of the chambers that are causing the malfunction of our legislatures. Proud to say I figured this out even before the representatives of the U.S. House of Representatives did, because I actually was in the late summer, even before the sorrows of young McCarthy saga began, went to the Convention of States people and said, hey, I think what we need is a coalition of groups to fix the rules of our legislature. It's the tyrant's weak side. It's the primary problem of why our legislature doesn't work right. I harangued and pleaded and groveled, and I think I threatened even a few. Got the Convention of States to say, yes, we'll be the first member of that. And now we are lining up groups like crazy for changing the chamber rules. And I'm betting you'd like to know what's wrong with chamber rules and how they affect the problem that they affect.
I would like to know that, but I'm going to stop you right there because I want to bring on the other people that are here to talk about that so they can figure this out with me. So Convention of States, before we get to that, Convention of States, there takes 38 states to do this. Where are we at on that whole process? I know that's a bigger overview of what's going on. What's that?
So it takes 34 states to call the convention, 38 states to approve any amendments they recommend. And we've got 19 states right now with hopes for probably at least 5 more to come on this legislative session.
Okay, so how does the state do that? I mean, do you have to get like 10 people? Do you have to do a petition? Do you have to get signatures? How does the state how do you talk a state into doing it?
Well, you go to the legislature and say, hey, here's the petition that's been passed in other states. Does it sound right to you? And the petition that we're asking states to sign is a convention to reduce the power and scope of the federal government. I think most people are going to like that. Force it into fiscal restraint, $32 trillion in debt, probably not a bad idea. And to limit the terms of people in service in the federal government. Dr. Fauci's been in the government and dead for the last 20 years, and never been removed. So these are all things that most people in America like the idea of. All the state legislature has to do is pass the same resolution that's been passed in the other 19. And when a total of 34 have passed it, the convention gets called and gets to propose amendments that Washington, D.C. will not like.
Yeah, that they can barely function without that other sideshow going on. So, wow. Okay. Well, that's going to be interesting. I'd like to see, it'd be fun to watch anyway. So, well, this is what I'm going to do, Dr. Stock. I'm going to go ahead and play. We got a new show coming up. You might be interested in this one too. And this is going to be, all I got to say, this is going to be interesting. Now, we won't have any tinfoil hats on this show. It's going to be fairly serious, but I want to keep it entertaining. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. And then when we come back, I'll bring on our other 2 guests because it looks like Ed is stuck in South Bend in the big snowstorm that's coming. So, but he may be on. So let's watch this clip. And this show is going to be next Thursday at 9 p.m. So here you go. So yeah, there we go. We got to, the ladies are on the bottom here. This is like, now Adam Harvey said he's going to play mouthwash bingo. And one of the things on the bingo card was you don't go there, you go over here. So you could be playing your little bingo game while you're watching mouthwash. I think that'd be fun.
You realize this leads to the terrible joke of women being on top, right?
Oh, I didn't see that one coming right away, but
That's a terrible joke.
Tiffany waved it off.
Leave it to the hockey player to go that way, right?
And somebody got smashed into the boards. Oh, never mind. We're not going there. Hey, so Tiffany, I see you're eating popcorn. Is that a precursor to what you Skinny Pop? Yeah, it's like
Skinny Pop is fattening.
Is it? Wait, because you eat the whole bag of it. I mean, can't you eat a whole bag of it?
10 grams of fat per serving. Oh yeah, Skinny Pop's pretty fattening.
Well, it's sort of like politicians. Whatever they say, think of the opposite, right?
Yeah, kind of
So,
like
so Lucy, you still got the flies dead back there. I thought they'd be coming back to life.
No, it turns out that once you're dead, you're dead. And it turns out that, the hokey pokey is pretty much as good as making you dead, as these flies have discovered.
Well, that is funny. Before we get to the politics thing or the vaccine thing, I've noticed a really big press from the vaccine people, because I don't think a lot of people are getting vaccinated anymore. So I think they got like all this vaccine in the freezer somewhere, and they're like, how are we going to get rid of this stuff? So, we got to do this. So Dorn says, ban Lucy from the show. Oh, come on.
Well, I'd like to point out, the timeline has been long enough since the vaccine has been out that we're actually starting to see the end result of it, which of course is death. And all this kind of happened. I don't know if anybody noticed like the rush timeline to get the ACIP to vote on adding the COVID vaccine as an annual event and putting it on the schedule for the kids. And so that was the real tragedy that most people don't even recognize. And, people want to say that Ronald Reagan was a great man. Well, he wasn't. Sorry to bust your little Republican bubbles. But he's the one that signed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was all under Reagan. So he's the one that brokered the deal and signed off on the dotted line so that all these pharmaceutical companies can literally kill you and your children, can disable you, can leave you in really bad physical shape, and have absolutely zero product liability.
Thanks, that is now I want to stop right here and say, I think we had somebody on the show, probably a year and a half or so ago, that talked about all this stuff. And now I don't know how you can't say I told you so, but that's never fun. Nobody ever likes that. It's just, but it does seem like there's a lot of folks that I've talked to that have vaccines that are like really, a little nervous about things. In fact, I got a friend that had a stroke from myocarditis about 2 or 3 months after getting the shot, and he is in a nursing home and will not come out. And I have another friend that is recovering from a stroke that he was actually able to get some function back. And he came right out and said, it's because of this shot. So I don't know. I mean, the VAER, there's a lot of stuff here. So before we get
I really don't know how fraudzy and all of these, executives are walking around alive. For those of you who aren't aware, the World Economic Forum had their big meeting in Davos last week, and there's an outfit called Rebel News, and they got out their cameras. They got out, I don't know the guy's name, so sorry, I can't do that. But if you look up
you
Rebel
always
News,
know the guy's name.
Yeah, these are reporters that I didn't know, but they're, it's like you and me, like going there for Mouthwash, and they like tracked down the Pfizer CEO and literally followed him down the street and said, hey, you said it was 100% effective, then 95%. Now we know it's not effective at all. Don't the countries deserve to get a refund? Are you going to give the companies a refund? How about the people that are dying? What do you think about myocarditis? So it was awesome to see.
He didn't say a word, did he? I saw that same video. He didn't say a word.
The first question he did, because they caught him off guard, and so he just kind of gave a 9 answer because they didn't know who he was at first, and they started out with a softball question. And so he thought they were all going to, be man on the street, making him look good. And they followed him all the way to the venue. And then, the bodyguards closed in, and the reporter mentioned that the bodyguards were kind of like, body checking him, trying to bump him out of the way. But he was
they don't like to answer. They do not answer. Oh, Ashley Grogg. She is definitely, she loves, wait a second. Ban Lucy. That's the wrong one. That's sweet background, Lucy. So Ashley Grogg has been on the show and talking about medical freedom. So we got all that. So
we should not condemn people for getting vaccinated. We should welcome them and be kind to them and help them understand their future moving forward. And it wasn't their fault. Then we need to treat them with compassion.
Yeah, they were set upon by some of the best liars who have ever existed in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, I got kids, and I know people that have been vaccinated, and my wife's mother, she has look what the cat drug in. Look at this. Now you're messing up our whole thing, Ed, by coming in here. But let's see. Let's get this. See, Adam would be winning.
That's
his
one
bingo
hell of an
card because you go
intro.
there, you go there. You go. I'm like Oprah. You get a move, and you get a move.
Hey,
But yeah. So, and her mom's got AFib. Dr. Stock, is AFib one of those things that's symptomatic on this, or?
Well, we think so. There's actually been one NFL player who developed a sudden attack of AFib and had to be cardioverted out of it. There's certainly explanation for why it should cause AFib. Again, one of the travesties of this is the data collection has been so botched and the research so terrible that it's hard to say anything with great certainty. I think with the greatest certainty available, you can say these things are bad and it probably does cause atrial fibrillation, yes.
Okay. Well, real quick, Ed, how's it going tonight? You bracing for let's check the radar real quick here. Let's see where we're at. Oh, look, it's rebooting. Look, there you go, Ed. It's coming to get you. The snowstorm of 2023. You're going to cancel school, go sledding with the kids. Yeah. So you ready? You got all your bread and milk?
Yeah, I've been dealing with a sick 8-year-old all night, and it's worse than any storm that could be coming.
Yeah, really. Yeah, eight's not old enough to know better, but really old enough to cry loud. So I feel you. I feel you on that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Well, welcome to the show tonight. We got Dr. Stock on here. I'll bring you up to speed, and we got new T-shirts and all sorts of stuff going on. So we're going to be talking
about the words correctly on the T-shirt. He even spelled on right.
I know.
That's impressive.
Yeah, you want to see the back here. Look. Oh.
He spelled on.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's terrible. I could make up words and spell them wrong and everything else. So I'm super proud of myself on this. It's a good thing to have 50 shirts spelled right. It's always good. So, if you do want to get one of these shirts, let's put up our little thing here. Where is it?
How much are the shirts? Are they free?
No, they're not going to be free. What do I think I'm made of money? We need people to support this show.
We're capitalists here.
Yes, we are. We're capitalists.
This show is definitely nonprofit.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, raise your hand if you're getting paid.
Hey, I make twice as much as Tiffany. I'm just saying.
Hey, I don't want to tell you what I got to pay Ed. It's crazy.
As they ask you about free, you're supposed to be the one on the right. What the?
Right.
Yeah, let's see. You go over there. Now mark your bingo cards again. So they're going to be $20, but what you do is you email this with your shirt size and how you're going to pay me, because I ain't mailing nothing unless you pay me up front. Because what do you think I am? Do you think I'm some charity case here? And then that covers shipping and handling for $20. That's pretty good.
Postage went up. It's going to cost you $1.50 to mail those shirts.
It costs $5. I already checked it.
To mail the shirt?
Yeah. It's about $5.
For 20? Are you doing tax on it?
Don't tell the IRS. I don't want them involved with me.
Those T-shirts.
I'm going to this convention of states to get rid of tax. Lucy's tax is theft. I'm going on the Lucy's train on this tax.
You know what? It might be theft, but you'll be paying for it. So you can either.
I know. I'm not going for profit. We're going for advertising. And, we have red and blue. And if we can get these gone, I'll see about yellow. But I got to find a better color yellow. They didn't have a very good yellow. It look more like poo than yellow. So, but anyway, speaking of poo, let's get back to this legislature and Dr. Stock's topic, because he's not missing the Penguins game for to come on here and chit chat about this little stuff. We want to talk about what's going on at the legislature and how we're going to hold them accountable. So, Dr. Stock, continue your story about how the sausage is being made. And I remember you saying it's like, hey, it's a sausage machine. So pick it up from there.
Sure. So I think the founding fathers and most people in the country, whether you believe in big government, small government, or no government, what you really thought was the legislature was supposed to go in, represent the values of the constituents of each of the members. They were supposed to debate the values of those each of those constituencies and come up with a solution that served the majority of them. How many people think a legislature does that in the United States right now? Yeah, no. So the question is, why doesn't it? And the answer is, effectively, when you and I elect a senator or representative at either the state or the federal level, We give him our power, and he walks right into the most powerful branch of government and surrenders it completely to someone else. And he does so by voting for the rules of the legislative chambers that hand over all of this power to the leader of that chamber. So in the case of the Senate, it's President Pro Tem here in Indiana, that's Senator Bray. In the case of the House of Representatives, it's Representative Todd Houston. And they do this by making up rules that say, hey, the leader of the chamber gets to do all kinds of things. So for those people who don't know how a legislature works, and you kind of got to get the background so you understand why this thing is breaking down, legislator can go in, he can file a bill, and on first reading, the leader of the chamber reads the bill, and then he assigns it to a committee. So that committee chairman then gets to decide whether or not that bill is going to get a hearing. And if the committee chairman doesn't give it a hearing, the bill just dies. Nobody votes on it. Nobody debates it. It's just dead. But let's just say the committee chairman says, I'm going to give this bill a hearing. All right, we're going to have a debate on this bill, and we're going to vote in the committee of whether or not we're going to pass it out. We can do amendments at the committee level. And then we'll, if we pass it out, it's going to go to the House, back to the chamber, where it's going to have second reading. And they're going to read the amended thing that came out of committee. And then anybody on the floor of the chamber can make further amendments to it if they want to. And then after those further amendments are all done, they close the amendment process, and it comes back a few days later and it has third reading. And on third reading, they say, hey, this is the final version we're voting on, and everybody votes. So that sounds great. Except there's a couple problems. You know, right now, everybody wants to be a committee chairman, because the reason you want to be a committee chairman, if you got a bill that you want to make sure gets heard and debated, and you're the committee chairman, you can always make sure your bill gets a hearing. But that means since the committee chairmen are chosen by the leader of the chamber and serve at his pleasure, that if the leader of the chamber decides you're not doing what I want you to do as the committee chairman, he can yank your chairmanship at any time, and you just lost all your power. So effectively, the power of the committee chairman is actually the power of the leader of the chamber. So let's say that you actually can get this bill called up, and I can tell you that there's a lot of bills that get filed and they never get heard because the Speaker of the House or the President Pro Tem of the chamber will assign them to a committee that he really intends to have it killed and kind of tell them in the caucus, this bill's never going to get a hearing. It's going to die. We're not going to debate it. The lobbyists don't want it. And the people, we don't want to show them that we're going to vote against it. So we're not going to give this thing a hearing. All right. God forbid you be a committee chairman who calls that thing up for a hearing, because if you do, you're not going to be a committee chairman anymore. But let's say you get this thing called up in committee and somebody stands up in the committee and says, you know what? I'd like to amend the way this bill is read right now so that it actually reads this way, because I think the people like it better. So you can have what's called a procedural objection, where somebody else in that committee can say, well, I object to that amendment. It's not germane to the bill. And guess who gets to decide whether it's germane or not? The committee chairman.
Yeah.
And if he says, no, that's not germane, we're not going to debate that amendment, that means we're not going to vote on it. Nobody's going to know how he stood on the issue. So let's say it gets out of committee and it goes to the main floor of the chamber. Now somebody else stands up from the main floor of the chamber and says, well, I want to debate it, this amendment right like this. Well, first of all, two things happen. Somebody else stands up and says, hey, I'm going to object to that on the same procedural ground. Leader of the chamber, he has the right to call the thing down and damn it and say, nope, that one we're not going to debate. We're not going to vote on. It's out of order. Now, you can actually challenge that ruling by the chair. If you and another member of the chamber say, hey, I object to your ruling, I want the whole house to vote on it, and somebody seconds that, you can make the whole house vote on it. But guess what happens then? Anybody who does that, all of his bills are dead. Chamber leader calls up the committee chairman and says, kill them all. Joe didn't behave himself. They're all dead. And so these different powers that are all held by the leader of the chamber basically make it so any bill that the people would want, but the lobbyists don't want, not only never get debated, they never get voted on, and you can never actually see that your legislature didn't actually represent you. And I can tell you this goes so far, is if you have a guy who's up for a tough election this year, he will actually go into caucus and say, look, I need to file a popular bill that I know the lobbyists don't like, but my constituents do. So I need to file this bill, and I need somebody to kill it for me so that I can tell all my constituents I tried, but it wasn't my fault. It failed. They'll vote for me. And I am told that there are actually discussions that go on in caucus in the Senate where, half the Senate's up for election 1 year, half the Senate, every 2 years, half the Senate comes up. And in the years that the half that's not up for election, those are the guys who actually kill all the popular bills the lobbyists don't want, because that way you've got time to forget they did this before the next election comes up. So looking at this, I realized, well, there's some solutions to this problem. What we need is just to change the rules so that the leader of the chamber and the chairman don't have all that power anymore. And that's easy to do, by the way. You can do it anytime during the legislative session. All it takes is one person to stand up and say, hey, I want to change these rules to read like this. Somebody seconds that motion. Now you got to have a debate on it. Well, if you decide not to vote for these rule changes, because they would make you accountable and representative of your constituency, we'll know you did that. The other reason it's kind of useful to do this is, let's say the chamber actually gets the stones together and says, all right, we're taking our power back from the leadership. Leadership can't harm them right now, and the other chamber can't stop it from happening. So let's say the House changes its rules. It's not subject to a review by the Senate. The executive branch can't veto it. This is the new process of making laws, and the sausage machine starts to work right. So we've actually proposed 3 changes to the rules, and we're working on a coalition of groups from all different sides of every issue. And it's totally nonpartisan, because representative democracy is good whether you like big government, small government, or no government. And these 3 rules we want changed is, first of all, make it so the committee chairmen are actually chosen by the committee themselves, and they serve at their pleasure. So that does a couple of things.
Then you have 5 people, everybody gets 1 vote.
That's right. Now the committee chairman looks around, he says, wait a minute, if I start killing the bills that this committee likes and I don't let them through, they're going to take away my committee chairmanship, not the leader, and then I won't be able to get my bills through. So all of a sudden, he's starting to feel the pulse of the people on the committee, not just that one leader of the chamber, and saying, okay, what are we doing here? Can we guys get this together and make this work? Second thing we want to do is change it to create what are called discharge petitions. So a discharge petition means, hey, I file my bill, and then I file a discharge petition, and if you can get 40% of the committee or 40% of the chamber as a whole to sign the discharge petition, that bill gets a hearing whether the committee chairman or anybody else in the chamber wants it to or not. Now, all of a sudden, you can't dodge the fact that you didn't support that bill. Because if you filed an insincere bill and didn't file a discharge petition with it, we'd know you really didn't want that bill debated and voted on. And if you do file a discharge petition, you can go to your representative and say, hey, did you sign Joe's discharge petition? We really like that bill. And if you didn't sign the discharge petition, we'll know you didn't support the bill. And the accountability grows. And then the third change we want is a change of how these procedural objections are handled. What we want to do is make it both at the committee level and at the chamber level. If somebody steps up and says, hey, we're not allowed to debate that, I think it's out of order, the entire chamber has to immediately vote on that on a roll call vote. So if you vote to kill this bill and not debate it, we're going to know you did that. And all of a sudden, we'll see, I think, if we do this, that the good legislators will be free to represent their constituents. The mediocre ones will find the courage and the motivation to become great. And the bad ones will say, this is not what I signed up for, and I'm just getting out because I can't hide anymore. And, I think it's important for everybody to recognize that these rules of the chamber that came up with, they came up back at a time when it was really hard to find out what your representative was doing. There weren't any lobbyists around when legislatures were first formed. And back in 1776, 1787, around that time frame, if you got to be in a legislature, you prided yourself on your ability to debate. And the idea that you would escape debate was considered just absolutely scandalous behavior. Lobbying came about, and all of a sudden that changed a great deal. And now the ability to play the sausage machine using those rules is actually how you look good in the legislature. These rules are outdated, and they need to be changed to diffuse that power away from the leadership and back out to the chamber as a whole, so that every single person has equal ability to represent his constituency and no ability to hide behind the leadership for faking that.
Yeah, I would say that that's sort of what happened with the government shutdown. They let the governor shut it down. And guess what? No legislator had to even put their stamp on that. They could blame the governor who's going to be out and all that. So that was a lot to digest, but I think that I did understand it. So I think you did a very good job giving us that civics lesson if I can understand it. So that and that reminds me of the bill. I think it was 1134. It was the porn in schools bill. You know, they talked about it in the committee and the Senate and debated it, and it goes over to Boehning's thing. I think it was in education at that point. And guess what? It doesn't even get a committee hearing. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. We had a long line of people for and against, and everybody wanted to see what was going to happen, and it just died. That's why I named this show the Bill Graveyard. So,
you know,
where do they go to die?
Two examples of terrible here so that people can see examples of how this malfunctions. First of all, you know, the one chamber that's elected every 2 years can look like your champion and pass a whole bunch of bills, and the leader of the House will then walk over to the leader of the Senate and say, hey, you're going to kill this for me, right? So we look good on our side because we got elections coming up. And it happens. You know, okay, we'll kill that one for you. A great example is that pornography bill. So that exact same language passed the Senate last year, 34-15, more than a 2/3 vote in favor. All right. It was actually one of the people who passed it, who voted for it, was Senator Liz Brown. So that's now been assigned to her committee, and she's not giving it a hearing, even though it passed last year with a supermajority vote, and she voted for it. It's not getting a hearing this year.
Yeah, and I think it's even watered down to the point where they're not even going to ask for anything else but just to hold the libraries the same as a normal person.
But and think about this. This legislature last game and this show passed that same language, all right, with a supermajority. This year, that same language isn't getting a hearing from a senator who voted for it. Did the people of Indiana change their desire for representation? I don't think so.
No, I think it is very much a problem. So I'm going to go. I mean, Ed, I could see Ed up there just trying to process all that stuff, or he's hearing his 8-year-old throwing up in the background. I don't know what it is, but it might be some of both. Ed, what do you think about this process that was, or you might be hearing the legislator throw up? I don't know. Ed, somebody's throwing up somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, somebody is. And one of the things, and I guess it's a rhetorical question, but I'll let Dr. Stock have at it. Where in the world do we let the people who we hire make up their own rules? Like, to this day, it's still why legislatures get to decide their own rules, and the people don't actually get to decide their rules. And to me, I think you're on the right track, but it just baffles me that again and again we let the legislature decide their own rules, and we expect different results. And so I guess I'll put that back to you.
Yeah, you know, well, this brings up a good point, and I'd like to use this because this sounds like legislator bashing, and I don't want it to be. Because at the end of the day, the reason they've been able to get away with this is, first of all, we were all naive and didn't know they were doing it, and then we let them because it was just not fun to pay attention to it and learn about it. And it's really tempting to wag our finger and say, oh, that nasty President Pro Tem's a horrible man. But, you know, he's a product of the government that we allowed to come about. And it's very tempting to want to blame the individual when this system has a tendency to take good men and make them mediocre. So honestly, Ed, this is going to, as a flaming independent who frankly is just about as moderate to right as you can get, your point is spot on. You know, eventually after we have these legislators learning that, hey, we know the game now and we demand it change, These rules should probably be enshrined in our Constitution of the state and probably even in the federal government, that these rules are immutable and that this is the way chambers are going to work unless you can get the people of the United States to agree to a rules change. This is the way the rules are going to work.
Perhaps it's a good time for me to interrupt you, Dr. Stock, because I am completely against a constitution of the states. I'm completely against holding a constitutional convention. The last time this happened in 1787 was the 100-day debate. It took them 100 days, but when you think about the sausage being made, the sausage that came out was not good for us. We went from the Articles of Confederation, where the states had sovereignty. Then we ended up with the Constitution that we have now, and we darn near didn't get the Bill of Rights. And here's why the Articles of Confederation versus the Constitution happened. A lot of people don't realize that there were war bonds that were created to fund the Revolutionary War. Well, the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, had no authority to tax people in the individual states, to gather that money up, and then to pay the debts of the nation. As a result, the subterfuge and the conspiracy behind this is that people like, I'm going to call out like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, who were the Federalists, they wanted a constitution because they had gone and secretly bought up all the war bonds. So these farmers, and regular people had bought these war bonds. They were basically worthless because there was nowhere to collect from them. I mean, imagine being a debt collector with no paperwork to force payment. But once the Constitution was signed, the Constitution gave central authority to Congress to pay the debts of the United States, and it's compulsory. As far as I know, our current Constitution is the only document that prevents us from basically filing bankruptcy on our debts and refusing to pay them, and it created the central authority. So all of those war bonds that were bought up by people in the background all of a sudden became worth 100% plus interest.
So I'm going to make
we don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, a couple comments on that. Because the analysis is not incorrect. I just think it's incomplete. First of all, I want to make sure people understand that the myth of the Runaway Convention of 1787 is a myth. The people who went to that convention actually had permission from their legislatures to do what they were doing.
Right. And us anti-federalists, we were fighting that crap because we saw right through what the Federalists were trying to do.
But you have to understand there were more problems with the Convention of States than just that. One of the other things that states were having was the Convention of States didn't have the ability to settle any dispute between states. So one state would just print a lot of money and inflate the value of the thing and then sell it in another state, and it was harming other states' economy. So
wow, that sounds like what's going on right now with the $13 trillion that was just printed. So
no,
I guess what's
but not between states. That's among all the states now. And the idea of the federal Constitution of 1787 was, look, in order for these states to get together, there has to be some consensus generating apparatus that can make it so that South Carolina can't harm North Carolina, Virginia, and Massachusetts and get away with it. There has to be a way to solve these problems. And this is the compromise they came up with. Now you have to remember, though, when they made this compromise, the people of 1787 at that convention were terrified of the monster they were building. The reason it went on so long, and they had this division of powers of legislative, judicial, and executive branch. The reason they came up with this is because they were terrified of concentrating the power the way they were doing. And actually, it's interesting if you know the story about how the Article 5 Convention of States process came about. They had initially proposed that the way the Constitution would be amended would be that Congress would propose amendments and the states would ratify it. But on the very last day of the convention, Colonel George Mason stands up and says, wait a minute, guys, we all know this government we're building is going to someday become corrupt. And right now, the mechanism for fixing it requires the corrupt people to propose the solution. And they won't do that. And so he proposed this second solution that, hey, if these states get together and call a convention to propose amendments on specific topics, and they are limited to the topics of the petition, then they can propose their own amendments, and the federal government can't stop the convention from occurring, and it can't stop the states from voting on the amendments. So remember, the convention itself can't change the Constitution. All it can do is propose amendments.
I don't think that's what will actually happen in practice. My understanding is that once you call the convention of the Convention of the States, that they'll be able to go behind closed doors and screw us over like they do. What else would we expect from the people that are currently wielding power?
Well, so a couple of things on that. First of all, they may be able to go behind closed doors, but anything they come out with from the convention has to be ratified by 38 states. So it's not like they could go nuts on this.
We already have 500 and something people that are conspiring against us. I mean, it's proven that they're willing to conspire. We don't need to worry that the 38 states are going to get their votes.
It's which conspiracies? It's like Milton Friedman says, where are we going to find these angels to run our government? Well, as interesting as this is, and I'm trying to keep up with you two eggheads over here because you guys are like talking civics 500. And
Do you notice we're both wearing yellow?
I noticed. All I got to say is my friend that says go Capitals. Are they playing the Capitals? Penguins playing the Capitals, or who are they playing tonight?
Oh
Penguins?
no, I wouldn't miss that game.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Well, but before we get Tiffany, I know it's your turn, but I want to get Adam's question up here.
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. You can help with this. Dr. Stock, it seems like these rules ideas are something that minority Democrats should be jumping on. Are you getting any support from that minority?
We've already heard from one legislator he likes the idea. We're not actually going out to the legislators until we've got a big coalition of behind them. Part of that's because there's a lot of mediocre and good legislators who, for good reason, are frightened of the chamber leadership. And if you stand up and propose these rules and you don't win, you're going to get axed, and you know that. John Jacobs can tell you that because he and Kurt Knisley basically got run out of the legislature by the leadership who didn't like them. And so we want to be able to give them support. But you're right. This is a wonderfully nonpartisan issue. I think it's probably something that will embarrass Republicans if they don't do it, because who wants to be the party that actually goes against accountability? For the Democrats right now, they don't even need to go to the legislature. They can't get their bills debated unless it's useful to the Republicans. They can't force anything that they want to actually have a valid hearing. Amendments they might like to get proposed are never going to be brought up. So, of course, they would really like accountability because right now that helps them even represent their own constituency, even if their constituency is in the minority. As a matter of fact, that's a big important thing to realize about legislatures, and for that matter, conventions of states, that debate is the important thing to happen here. The only person who doesn't benefit from a debate is a tyrant.
Yeah, well, and I'd say that, my House of Representatives that I've run against twice now in 10 years, guess how many bills he's actually authored and gotten passed? Maybe one. He got one. And that was one that he sort of got gifted. He didn't even really start it. He just got it gifted to him. So it's like, okay, so if you're sitting there and you're in a Democrat area and you got a Democrat rep or whatever, or you could even make that equal to a Republican that has no power because they're afraid to speak. They're in the same boat. And
Absolutely.
if they don't go along with that vote, you can see how the supermajority can get out of control and have no competition and no predator. It's sort of like the great white shark.
Here's a question.
Okay.
And I totally understand how power swings and stuff, but if all of these legislators are elected by their local communities, then is a supermajority a bad thing, or does it just reflect the values of the voters?
I think a supermajority that actually is beholden to that majority may be a very good thing. The problem is not that, hey, Republicans have the majority or Democrats have the majority. The problem is that lobbyists have the majority. Because right now, they only have to buy 2 people in the legislature, and they've won. All they need is the president pro tem and the speaker of the House, and he can cow everybody else into behavior. And so it actually is concentrated power that isn't democratic.
About the legislators, and you talk about the 2 people being in charge. So what do you propose? Does every bill deserve to be heard and passed? I think every legislator can do 10 bills. They've got 1,100 bills. Do all of them deserve to be heard and make it to committee and voted on?
No, but that's exactly where the idea of
how are they supposed to determine priorities? So I love that you have this grandiose idea, but okay, if you can't get 38 states together to work this out, what is plan B?
So let me first of all talk about how do you handle the number of bills. First of all, one of the reasons we have a number of bills.
This is according to you.
What's that?
This is according to you.
Actually, it's not just according to me. I've actually spoken with legislators in other state legislatures and a few of our own to pass by these ideas and what it would do. I don't want to name them because I bet they don't want to be named.
You better not. You better not.
There'll be no more committees.
Yeah, you better not.
It'd be like they'll be down there with AOC and all them other ones that don't have anything.
Let me first of all tackle the too many bills, because of course the number of bills being filed is going up exponentially in the legislatures right now. Part of that's coming just from the fact that people want to file insincere bills so they can look like they did something. If you change these rules, filing an insincere bill actually will make you look bad because you will be shown to be insincere.
So, okay, that's fine, Dr. Stock. So I guess I'm just like, this just isn't really sitting well with me because I'm kind of like, a legislator is not going to vote against its own best interest. I mean, the American Medical Association, I think that's a bunch of doctors. So of course, most entities are self-governing. So, as I sit here and listen to you critique everything, I'm kind of like, well, what if somebody was like, well, healthcare is so out of control that doctors should really only make 25% of what they're charging, because healthcare costs are just out of this world. So, hey, everybody in the world, let's get together and let's change the way that the American Medical Association works. Let's go to war with the health insurance companies and everybody involved in reimbursements. And let's just make it so that doctors only make 25% of what they've been making, because they haven't really been practicing medicine. And unless a doctor actually cuts somebody, he's not really a doctor. So how about we do that? So I say it like that because, I mean, it's always easy to blow up someone else's system, but I think a better conversation is about how can we work productively within the current situation. You're talking about changing culture, changing rules, getting 38 states on board. And you know what? That's very pie in the sky. Let's understand what the legislative priorities are and get people to work toward those things. I just don't see, this doesn't even sound like a viable conversation. It's so pie in the sky. It is so something that you talk about on Saturday morning at a coffee shop, with your best friend Maury, and he's 120 years old. I'm not saying that it's not important, but I just don't think that it's a productive conversation.
Well, let me first of all see which conversation we're talking about. Are we talking about legislative rule reform or the Convention of States? Because those are two very separate subjects.
I don't know. They all.
Yes, I think she's saying yes.
I want to introduce subject number 3, which is, Tiff,
it all came together. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tiff, you're like talking about changing the way doctors get paid. I got an instant fix for all of this. Doctors only get paid when you get well. And other than that, they can frickin' starve. So they will very quickly learn to help you with diet and exercise instead of
injury attorneys. We only get paid if you get paid. Yeah.
I'm going to digress a bit back to the topic of legislative reform here. And I'm actually going to use Tiffany's AMA example for why I think the solution, she's solving a different problem. Because you think the AMA is self-governing. But do you know how the AMA gets most of its money?
Probably what, lobbyists?
That's right. It doesn't get it from doctors. The minority of doctors are members of the AMA. They don't speak for the average doctor. They speak for lobbyists. And the problem in the legislature.
Maybe the war needs to be against lobbyists. If they're in charge of everything, maybe that's the problem.
Well, and I'll tell you what.
That's the thing is that, like, you look at these large institutions that we have, and you're talking about dismantling them, where it sounds like lobbyists are the bigger problem, and that's where the regulation needs to be.
So I agree with that completely. But let me ask you about a fundamental problem. You think under the present rules of any legislature, you're going to get them to vote to get rid of lobbyists? The lobbyists own the leadership.
Well, you know what? That's the thing is that, like, if you want to take this fight to the American people, you have to create the story and build, and you have to create the story. You have to tell the story, not a 45-minute story, but you have to get them to understand who's really in control. And, politicians are funded by two people, private people and special interest groups. And the special interest groups are given a whole lot more money than mom and dad.
I have no faith in the American people. If you can't put it in a meme or you can't put it, in some sort of
that's what
ball,
it ain't going to be do, Dr. Stock. Put it in a meme. It's Schoolhouse Rock.
I love that, Lucy. And so when they're out of session, they've got to go back to their communities. And they need to be answering tough questions. If lobbyists are the issues, you get them at a forum and you're like, well, Tom, you've been our legislator now for about 20 years. Talk to us about the lobbyists that work with you.
What?
Or you take a
What a
campaign
clown
finance
world
report
you
Wait,
live
what
in,
state do you
Tiffany.
live in? What state
Yeah.
do you live in?
Tiffany's
Is it-
living in a state of
Days.
confusion. She thinks there's some honor amongst thieves.
Okay, now speaking of worthless bills, we're gonna do small talk right now. I want you to regroup. Because we're talking in one giant big circle here, and regroup after small talk, and hey, we'll see what happens on the other side. So here you go. Let's listen and see what Mark Small has to say.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk for January 24th, 2023. The General Assembly is going on. Wow! All these different laws are being presented to the General Assembly. Amongst them is House Bill 1464. What that would do, essentially, is give a cause of action to someone who gets miffed because there was a political ad that they feel was doctored against them. Now, I'm normally against the death penalty, but I think candidates for that would be whoever came up with the grainy black and white gray thing. I mean, I hate those things. They add as little to public debate and dialogue as what happened around Kevin McCarthy's 16, 17, 200, how many ever ballots he took to become Speaker of the House. That was zero. So what about our history of political speech? Political speech under our law and in the United States is the most protected speech. Now, how long have people been using malicious statements in political campaigns in the United States? For as long as we've had political campaigns in the United States. People were slamming George Washington as being senile. They slammed John Adams, actually. Jefferson and Adams went back and forth quite a bit. Now, you don't have to be a scholar of Mad Magazine and Spy versus Spy to see that if somebody's given the chance to sue their political opponent just because they made an outrageous statement, well, we're not going to have very much time in the courts for anything but people suing each other. So this is a garbage idea. It should be tossed. If people want to convince other people, voters, that their opponents are scumbags, groovy, let them do it. This is America. You can speak your mind. But if people are going to let their views on politics go down to the level that they're going to take this malicious crap as being basis for their vote, well, we got a lot more problems in our society that we need to address rather than political speech. I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk for January 24th, 2023. Peace, love, happiness, and may the force be with everybody. Bye-bye.
So there you go. That sort of sums it up a little bit there. This is a perfect example of a law to keep people from lying. It's like, we're going to put Wonder Woman's truth lariat on them. That's what we need to do. If you remember that show, that'll make them tell the truth. So, has everybody calmed down a little bit? Is everybody ready to have another civil discussion? Because it's a mini fresh take on politics, not a mini fresh argument on politics. So
no one's arguing. We're just talking.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. Well,
I'm actually going to take on Lucy and Tiffany's objections here with a point right from the get-go, which is, hey, if the Hoosier population and the American population at large has no capacity to learn, then this is hopeless from the get-go, and we might as well go back to anarchy and start shooting each other. Second of all, my experience has been that people aren't that stupid. After all, we couldn't get the 15% take these bivalent boosters. We learned after the first round that, no, this is a bad idea. Second of all, I can tell you, when I go to a group and I do a lecture, and I only have to do the lecture 20, 25 minutes, that group gets very interested. I was just at the Central Coalition of Central Indiana Tea Parties. I think we had 5 groups sign up from those who were represented there, said, not only do we want to sign up to be part of the coalition, when can you come talk to the rest of our group, because they need to know this. I think we have to recognize that all the other things that we want to come to support our democracy, making it illegal to be allowed to lobby, election integrity reform, all these other things that are necessary aren't going to happen as long as the legislator respects a lobbyist more than he respects his constituents. And he can do that now because the rules allow him to hide from them. But if the constituents go to him and say, we will not let you hide anymore, now the thinking of a legislator begins to change. He looks at the lobbyist and says, I know you think you can save me with campaign cash, but I'm not sure you can. You didn't get Hillary Clinton in office. You know, the Republicans just took over the House, some of whom were not, were pretty heavily gone against. This lobbying thing of yours may not be powerful enough if I don't have the rules to hide behind. And I can't hide behind them if the people know I'm doing it. So I think your cynicism about the ability of the American population and the Hoosier population to understand this and do it is possibly a little exaggerated. And if it's not, then we're all going to go into anarchy and revolution anyway, so who cares? We might as well try this.
And Lucy wins. And Lucy wins. One of the things that I look at this is, at the very least, this brings awareness to what's going on. I think that this has been something that's been shrouded for a long time. And, you know, you could blame COVID, you could blame whatever, but people started paying attention when their kids started staying home on what they were learning. Now I think it's the same thing. It's like, wait a second, how are we getting these crappy laws or this super majority or this or that? And we don't feel like we have a say anymore, to the point where people are just not even voting because they think it doesn't do any good. So, hey, one, it may get people excited to learn, even though it is a little complicated for an average guy like me, but it is very interesting to see how the thing actually works. And I think that the more people we get educated, the more people that'll be involved. And I think that will put some pressure on these, because the bottom line is we have a vote, and that keeps us from being Venezuela or, you know, China. I don't think they get a vote in China, do they? Did they just sort of,
no,
they don't get a vote, do they? So it keeps us from being them.
We don't get a vote either because the Democrats steal them all.
Oh, here we go.
And the Republicans do too. They both the parties are guilty.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Ed? She's calling your party out. I'm just saying, you look like you got your little hoodie
Ed's
on
an
there,
honorary libertarian. He just has a whole bunch of common sense. I don't know why he puts that D on his forehead.
So Ed, what do you think? I mean, do you think people are going to get aware of this, or you think that this is going to be something that's going to be like,
First of all, the argument that we can't do it because it's too difficult is never good. It's always going to fall on deaf ears when you come to me. Ed operates from the idea that we're going to do something because it's right. And if the people can't comprehend, I personally don't think this is an overly complicated thing to explain to people. This is something that, you know, I've kind of talked about with people a lot of times. You'd be amazed at how quickly, because, you know, there are a lot of people that are angry that the system doesn't work, and they don't understand why doesn't the system work. This is right at the middle of why that system doesn't work. So if you're angry and you don't understand why the legislature does not, this is at the heart of that issue. And I think people are very willing to take the time to actually learn. I think this is that they'll learn on. Do you support Dr. Stock? I do think this is definitely a cause that I
sink your teeth into.
Yeah, the Democrats cut his feed. That's what they just said no. So
my experience is this isn't so complicated. People can't learn it. You know, in medical school, they told me I'd make all the decisions for my patients because patients were too stupid to learn it. It didn't take you very long in practice to realize that wasn't right.
No, they're concerned.
They just didn't know they didn't know. Once you tell them what goes on, they're like, wait a minute, because they got an interest now. It's like, wait a minute, how come grandma's dying from shots and all of a sudden my 18-year-old can't run track anymore? There's something's wrong here. My government did something bad here. How did that happen? You say, well, since you asked, let me explain to you about chamber rules. And the next thing you know, they're all over it. I've never had to do a 45-minute lecture to get a group to say, yeah, we want that. I can do a 20-minute lecture, and they're like, I tell them the story of John Jacobs' amendment last year to House Bill 1101, and you see jaws dropping all over the place. I tell them about the even better amendment that was filed by another legislature that he never called up for a vote because he was told he better not.
Oh yeah, that would be. Kurt Nicely was told that, and you know they called him not germane on different things. I mean, just everything in the book. And the thing was, Kurt Nicely was he was the John the Baptist out in the wilderness until John Jacob came along, because you have to have a second to do anything. John Jacob comes along, starts seconding things, and man, he really shook the bushes. I mean, he got them coming out, and you can see what happened. They spent $1 million getting rid of those two gentlemen instead of dealing with them. I mean, it's like, hey.
Let me give you some further reason to hope why there's change in the air here. On Organization Day of this year, there were actually 10 senators who actually voted to remove Senator Bray as the president pro tem. 3 of them were committee chairmen and put their committee chairmanship on the line. When they failed in their vote, all 3 of them got sacked, by the way. But think about that. For the first time that I know of in Indiana history, a strong number of not only senators, but committee chairmen came out and said, things aren't working right, and we want to have a solution. Now, I'm going to maintain they chose the wrong solution. They chose to change the king instead of getting rid of the kingdom. I think what we need to do is to show them, hey, not only do we want you to get rid of the kingdom, but you have the support of the people of Indiana to do so. And I have a feeling that the group that worked on Representative McCarthy for Speaker of the House, they already are on to the lesson. Don't forget how big that was.
Yeah, they got some concessions on that. Well, I'm going to put this up here, and this is Adam Harvey. He's pretty good at breaking things down. He says it's pretty simple. Committee chairs should serve at their committees. Bills should be heard and voted if 40% more of a committee or body views it as important, and procedural determinations on legislation should be subject to vote. Does that pretty much sum up your 45-minute speech?
Adam, I love you, man. You just did. That's the meme, Tiffany.
Yeah, there's your meme, but I don't know what you could do that with. Maybe you have let's see, who's the guy on there, the Simpsons. What's the dad's name on the Simpsons?
Homer.
Homer, yeah. We call it the Homer meme. So, that's good. So
let's use the Lisa meme. That's a little better sounding in the Simpsons analogy.
The which one?
The Lisa meme. She's the smart one in the family.
Easy. So where do you go from here? What's I know it sounds like you're out talking to groups, and our show, we like to educate people on things, or maybe me, I guess, but it's what's the game plan here? I know you've talked to groups. I was actually at the Tea Party when you talked to them, and those ears were perked up.
Yeah, so actually we're going around to groups on both sides of every issue, and from legislatures, from all parties, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, everything from people who want one tax reform to people who want another term, both sides of the abortion debate. We're going to reach out to all of them and say, look, do all you guys agree that debate is the thing that should happen here to solve the problems of the people of Indiana? And I don't think anybody says, no, debate's a bad idea. Well, I tell you, here's why you're not getting it, and here's the way you can get it, because this is totally nonpartisan. We're calling this effort the Citizens Coalition for Legislature Accountability. And it's got nothing else it's going to do. So, for instance, the John Birch Society is strongly against the convention states. It's about the only thing they and I disagree on. I've already reached out to the John Birch Society to say, hey, what do you guys think about this thing? Because we can work together on this. This is something that every side of every debate works better with this if we actually have unfettered, sincere debates come out of this. The only people who don't benefit from a sincere debate is a tyrant.
Cool. I mean, and I agree. And they definitely use it. It's a game of hide and seek, and they win every time. We were trying to get John Jacob on the show, and he just sent me a message. Oh, sorry, I didn't put it on the calendar. So but it would have been, yeah. I don't know if he may have to lay down on the couch with a cold rag on his head if he has to relive his time at the house when they beat on him for all those times. But I'm sure we'll be able to get him on the show in the future. Well, I'll tell you.
I would love to come on with him. John Jacobs, love him or hate him, I got to tell you, this is a very sincere man and a very thoughtful man who felt the brunt, not only of leadership, but the system itself. He actually witnessed firsthand debate being destroyed.
Yep.
He
And he
can
was
testify
the,
to
he
it
was
like
the
almost
poster
nobody
child
else
for
can.
it.
So I have a question. So what makes a more successful legislator? Somebody who's able to work across the aisle and have impact, or somebody who's, just working against the system?
Well,
Somebody who's willing to say no, 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 no. Dr. Ron Paul was the last good one.
I
Paul
think,
Justin Mock.
Tiffany, I would answer your question by saying you assume those are two different things. I don't think they are. I think that if actually people go into a legislature and they can't hide the insincerity of their intentions, and they have to sit down and debate with somebody and say, look, we've got to find a solution here that I can get a majority of votes to work on this thing, regardless of what the lobbyists say, you're going to see this division of government go away, and we're going to see both parties move towards the majority position of the state. And isn't that what it's supposed to do?
But
That's what debate tends to do, is to break down walls.
So, but if a bill is passed when the majority of people vote for it, what majority are you speaking of?
The majority of Hoosiers in the state of Indiana. If we get this done at the federal level, which I think would be great as well, it's not the end all be all of fixing our federal government, but it's a big part of fixing our federal government. Then the majority of states will be served.
And I think what your question is, Tiffany, is like who is being served here. Well, the problem is you have people that are afraid to vote what they're supposed to vote because they don't want to be thrown out of their committee, or they don't want to be shunned, or they don't want to be John Jacob or Kirk Nicely's. So you should be able to have you should be able to speak your mind and not be punished for it. And right now, that's a lot of what I see. Yes. Is if you speak your mind, or say you vote against somebody and you lose your committee or whatever, to me, that's pretty much, that's dictatorship right there. That's not free will. That's not free speech. That's not debate. That's not open-minded. That is like my way or the highway. I see Ed smiling up there. So
I am fine with it, but I just think that when people take office, they need to tell their constituents what success looks like. I'm going to work hard with my counterparts to craft legislation that works for all Hoosiers, or I'm going to stand for X, Y, and Z. I just think that people just need to communicate what success is, because it's going to be different things for different legislators who are representing different Hoosiers. That's all.
But my question to you would be, well, what if you stand for something that's X, Y, and Z, and it costs you having any voice in the parlor? I mean, so how do you do that?
It's funny. It's like, there are things that are very important to me that I will die on my sword for. I'm fine with that. You just got to know what your limitations are. But then the other part of it is too, is that like Tiffany's interests and the interests of her constituents can be two different things. So at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're doing the right thing by your constituents. So many politicians are led by ego and not the people that they're leading. So,
and that ego is lobbyists, and lobbyists is money, and that's how they get reelected. So,
and that's where the accountability piece comes in. Because if you were to stand up and have to look at your constituency and say, hey, you guys elected me and I don't care what you think, this is my definition of good, and I'm going to go into the legislature and vote for it.
No,
we'll know you did that. And at the next election, we can come to you and say, look, you weren't elected to go represent your version of good. You were elected to go represent our version of good in the debate. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to recognize that if a guy represents sincerely his constituency, mm-hmm. goes into a debate, sincerely represents them, and loses the debate, he has still been a good legislator.
Yes, I agree with you. And the other part of that, Dr. Stock, and one of the things that really gets under my skin is when people run against incumbents who may not have the best interest in mind for their constituents, and they'll come out of nowhere, they'll run a good race, and they'll talk about how bad the other person is and how they're not voting correctly, and then the person loses and goes away. And then that legislator is not held accountable. So I think that, I think that if somebody's going to come out of the blue and take on somebody and run against them, if you're not taking two bites out of the apple, you're wasting everybody's time.
And that may well be true, but let me tell you the other thing I'm hoping to see happen, because like I say, I don't want this to turn into legislator bashing. I suspect that, we have to look at these
Well,
men.
it already has been, I think.
What's that?
I think it already has been.
Well, then I want to make sure it doesn't sound like that.
Well,
because I can tell you, since I've talked with a great many legislators, we have to remember that these people have families and fears just like the rest of us.
Dr. Stock, are you trying to clean this up?
I'm trying to be very,
I think he said early on that he didn't want it to be this way.
Bashing people, bashing how they work together, and so now you're trying to clean it up.
No, I'm bash systems, not individuals.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you bash the systems. Yes. How the speaker and the president pro tem, how they have control over the committees, how the committees do what they say. And I apologize for putting faces on the roles that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's all your fault. And it's like it's the pieces of it's like complaining about the piston in the motor.
You were speaking completely hypothetically, and I was just I was thinking of the people. So okay.
In fact, I would beg everybody to understand that a lot of legislators get where they're at because they have this desire to do something for their population. They get into this system, and this system tells them, well, if you want to do something, you have to do it by these rules. And the next thing you know, these rules have become ingrained in them in second nature, and they continue to execute them. And then we look at them as insincere, horrible people, when in fact they are a creature of the government we allowed to exist. And it's very tempting to say, well, I want that president pro tem's head. He's clearly a sellout. Well, wait a minute, guys. You put him in a system where to do anything good, he had to play by these rules. And then when he got the advantage in this game, he was now so ingrained at these rules that he may not understand a different way.
Wait a minute, Dr. Stock, you were just talking very highly of the 10 people who are trying to vote Bray out. And now you're
don't put a name on there, the pro tem. It's not a person's name.
But now you're backing up and saying that, hey, great job for trying to vote him out. But hey, understand it's not him, it's the system that put him in there.
So let me explain.
Tiffany, you're a perpetuation of the system. You yourself, you talk about all these high-minded ideals and everything, and you're just I'm going to say it. I love you, Tiffany, but you're a GOP shill.
Well, thank you
all right, I could have gone to the tinfoil hat about 5 minutes ago.
Talk about dismantling the system, talking about all these things, and now he's trying to say that these people are really good people and they need to feed their families.
If you love your constituents, you will dismantle the system that oppresses them.
Okay.
We are in economic slavery. You are a Black woman. You should recognize that slavery has moved from the plantation to everyone.
We throw out slavery like it's an adjective for everything. Oh my God, I'm a slavery to air.
Well, neither you nor I served on a plantation, and white people have been slaves throughout the centuries as well.
Yes.
We are in a socioeconomic class. We are not privileged to be politicians, but you sure as heck are trying to work yourself up into the big club, and they're using you to be their shill, and you don't even recognize it.
Who is using
John, do you feel sad right now?
I've lost control. I've lost total control again.
How am I being used? How am
I being tell you what, Tiffany, may I interject here? Because I want to point out that those 10 people, I think they were well-intended, but they actually let their motivation choose the wrong solution. They went after the idea of, oh, Bray's a bad man, we must remove him. Well, I can tell you that Senator Bray may be a very good man in a different system.
Yes.
And they didn't choose the best option. I'm glad they were motivated to try and make a change. That's what I'm saluting. But I'm not actually saluting the change they tried because I don't think it was the best solution.
Yeah, because I know Rod personally. He's a decent guy. I think he's caught into this. If he wants to stay in the speaker, he's going to do what they want him to do. And it is a dark shadow that I think really.
And there's the error in your thinking. He's a good man, but he's just caught in the system. The people that are good are no longer in the system because the system won't tolerate them and they won't tolerate the people. The very best thing that could happen is the absolute worst people get into office immediately and the whole thing collapses because you'll finally see the difference between where you expect things to be and the absolute horror and crap show that is our legislature, both at the state and national levels. The more the oppression becomes out in the open, then the sooner the people will recognize it and the sooner they will remove their support from the system.
So I think we're already
let it all burn down.
I think we're already there, Lucy. And I think the reason you can tell we're already there is because Representative McCarthy had to give up a lot of power to get what he was doing. And those only take 20-minute lectures for people to say, yeah, we want this. I think that's already started. And I think there's actually a third option here besides loading up the government with nefarious human beings who make it look bad, because I think it already looks bad. I think the third option is, I can't remember who quote it was, but who said, the people gets a government it deserves. And the people are probably getting ready to say, we deserve a better government than this. And this is the first salvo in solving that.
We won't get there, however, because the cash is getting ready to go. The CBDCs are getting to be lined up. And, you know, they've got these new grocery carts that you just scan as you put things in the cart. So you're checking yourself out. Well, the same system that says, beep, you're approved is the same system going to go, your carbon credits have reached their limit. You're too political, Lucy. You don't get to buy eggs this week. And I'll be like, hey, ho, I got my chickens out the dough.
That's good. I want to give you one weather update. Here it comes. Snowmageddon's coming here. Ed, I'm going to let you have the last word, and we're going to conspiracy theory. Before this thing goes off the rails again.
You know, the one thing that I have told and stressed to people time and time again is, don't look at this as an Indiana issue. Don't look at this as just my side versus the other side. Close your eyes for a minute. This is an issue that happens from state to state. Indiana just happens to be a red state. But my question to people is, and we've had Republicans on here time and time again that say, we are a red state, but the state still doesn't work for us. Why is that the case? And this hits right at the core of that. And I'm with Dr. Stock. I don't think this is bashing. I'm not trying to bash individual legislators. I'm trying to get to the middle of why. How is it that you can vote everybody conservative and then still have issues with it? And this speaks to where the problem is. And it's not just in this state. Again, you have Democrat states. You have, at the national level, we have this same issue. So this isn't just bashing one set of people here.
Hugging you through the screen, Ed.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, lively show tonight. Lively show. Hey, we got the new t-shirts. Email us if you want one. $20. And Dr. Stock, I think this is your fourth or fifth time being on, and we love having you on here. Always brings a lot of viewers and a lot of questions, and made Tiffany's brow do that a little bit. So that's always good to keep her awake during the show. I mean, you definitely keep her awake, and Lucy always has the fire going. And Ed, that was a brilliant last word. So we're going to go to conspiracy theory. And Dan, since you're not a politician, you can stick around for this part. That's for sure.
He is tonight.
Oh, he is tonight. Oh boy. Come on now.
Just
please.
a citizen.
Yeah, just a citizen's arrest. Okay, get your hats. Hey, y'all, better get your tinfoil hats out. It's time for the conspiracy theory. Come on now, let's go. So let's see. I don't know what. Oh, Ed's internet's may not be bad, may not make it that long. So he's like, hey, somebody read his. He's got one. So if it goes bad, he can do that. So Lucy, we're going to start with you tonight because I know you're going to bring something, because there's just so many things that you've conspiracy facted on that have been true. So give us you got a new one for us.
See, here's the thing. Our entire existence, we're just living in the Truman Show, the True Man Show. We're living in the Truman Show. So I'm just going to put it out there. There's a lot of evidence that says that we're actually living in the Matrix. And so I'm going to invite all of you to just along with me and change your own reality. It's up to you to change your reality. And that is the real difference. That's the real conspiracy, is that you have the power to change and take away the power from all these MFers.
Yes. Well, I mean, that seems to be a current right now of people getting, learning how this works, seeing how we can change it and seeing how we can fix it. Obviously, you can see, I don't think any of us had the same. I think Ed actually agreed the most tonight with what Dr. Stock was saying. And you can see how difficult it is to get folks on the same page sometimes. So we'll keep trying. So All right, Tiffany, what do you have? Are you setting a snow trap, or are you going to go out and build a igloo for your boyfriend, or what do you got? Because are you getting the cold shoulder? What's up?
I'll have snacks that I'm going to sprinkle on the snow. I'm just going to wait. Yeah.
Wait for here's the update. Here we are. We got that. Oh, it's coming to get us. The green. Woo. It'll be here about 2:00. You wake up and be bad. So let's see. Ed, what do you got? Is your internet going to hold on?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think Jerry Jones is messing with my internet because he didn't want me to ask. How about them boys? Go Niners.
You're not a Cowboys fan, are you? Are you a Cowboys fan? You like the Notre Dame, I know.
Niners fan, yes.
Oh, Niners. Oh, okay. Well, then you really.
There's nothing better. The only thing better about advancing in the playoffs, and for me, is it beating either the Packers advance. So yes, it was a good weekend.
So I'm surprised that what's the name of their quarterback? Dak? Is that his name? D-A-K? Is that his first name? Is his last name? It's so I didn't see the game. All I did was I saw people on social media complaining about how bad he was, but I was going to say, well, they were better than the Colts. But I mean, did they have to win the Super Bowl for people to be satisfied if you're a boys fan?
Pretty much. They've not won a Super Bowl since like 94, 95.
Yeah, Troy Aikman, wasn't that the last time? And I think Troy Aikman's dead now.
Hype around the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't know. It's America's team. America's team.
Couldn't get him. Did Tony Romo ever get him out of the regular season? I mean,
yeah, he made it to the playoffs, but I think did he make it to the playoffs?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But they've made it to like this. They've never won the division in like 7 times they've been there. It's like giving them a hard time. But hey, they're winning games during the season. That puts people in the stands. They just got to get it over the edge on that last one. So, all right. So we got Tiffany, me, Dr. Stock. Do you have a conspiracy theory? Or fact? Conspiracy fact?
Yes, everyone will consider that the coming snowstorm was instigated by Bill Gates to interrupt legislatures, and will be shocked to go outside and find out the real reason there was snow is it's cold.
It's coming. It's coming to get you. The big comma. It's the Oxford comma. If you don't have that, everything's messed up.
We're let's see. So lucky.
I had a really good conspiracy theory this week. I really did. And I'm like, man, this is going to be great. And then I forgot it. I just got a lot of stuff going on. Got the new T-shirts in here. Yeah. I just want to tell you, these T-shirts were made in America. They weren't made overseas or anything. They're made Ohio T-shirt company. So they may have a little Buckeye smell to them, but that's all right. It'll wash out that first time.
Quick question. Dr. Stock, are you still practicing medicine?
Yes, I'm a full-time family physician.
Okay.
It's like, you don't make an appointment, Tiffany?
I was just wondering. You're just
okay. My doctor is the same doctor as the Pacers. I just want you to know that. I'm like, come on, I'm an athlete. So, okay. Let's see. I don't have a conspiracy theory. I can't think of it. My conspiracy theory is this is all going to be rain. There's no snow's coming. It's all rain. So there you go. You got all that bread and milk for nothing.
A lot of French toast.
All right. I like the French toast. Yes or no? Pepe La Pews.
100% whole grain, gluten-free French toast, of course.
I'll take all your gluten. Bring it to my house. I want it. Okay. Let's see. Tune in Thursday at 9 for our new show. Let's see what kind of train wreck that's going to be. I'm excited to give this a whirl. It's going to be our pilot show and all that. And if you want a T-shirt, let me put that back up there real quick on our way out of here. There you go. Just do that. Just Mouthwash Talk Show at Gmail. That's really hard to remember. Size, address, $20. Come on now. Let's do it. Hey, thanks for the audience tonight. We appreciate it. And no, Ashley, you can't have eggs with your T-shirt. I have chickens too, but I'm not sending eggs. They'll probably get lost in the mail. All right, everybody. Well, let's do the sign off here, and let me get to it. All right.
Hey, Adam's
thanks, Dr. Stock.
Got a good idea.
What's he got? Play the show. Play the preview again. Oh, I'll play that again. Okay, here you go. Lions and tigers and bills. Oh my. So there you go. There you have it. I'm going to run that on the Mouthwash Talk Show Network until we can figure out if it's going to work, if Jim Mayer doesn't kill me, and there won't be any tinfoil hats. It's going to be serious. So say a prayer for me to be serious, because sometimes I'm not serious. So anyway, and I make up words, right, Tiffany? I make up words.
Small words.
Yeah, small words. And look, we got Dorn in the background live on the show. You don't have that every day. All right.
Happy birthday, Robert.
We'll catch y'all next week. I don't know who we got coming on. Lobbyist. We may have a lobbyist. We may have I don't know. We may have a bunch of people. So somebody call the 911 for Lucy. She's being attacked. So,
nah, I'm a concealed carry. I got this.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Look out for the ball.